Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today it is the first day of the 2019 Advent Calendar of Christmas horror movies. Every day from now until the 25th, I will be tackling a new Christmas horror movie review. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this for a third year in a row. I know that there's 50 horror movies out there because I got this year's lineup all set and done, but I don't know if there's 75 out there, so we'll just see how it goes. But I know that 2019, we're going to have a great ride, and let's start this one out with the 2017 movie Mercy Christmas. Directed by Ryan Nelson, this movie follows Stephen Hubble playing the character of Michael Brisket, a chubby, affable, pleasant character that never really manages to get anywhere in life. He is constantly and relentlessly of good cheer and of merriment, and always trusting and believing in people, no matter how many times he gets kicked in the holly berries. And in this movie, he is constantly kicked in his holly berries by his boss and by pretty much everybody around him, as he throws a Christmas party and nobody shows up except for one character who proves to have less than genuine intent when she invites him over to her family's Christmas dinner. Since he doesn't have any friends or family to go to, he gladly accepts, and then finds out that their intentions are a lot more sinister than they appear when he is now on the menu as the main course. What this movie really brings to the table more than anything else is just dark delights brought by the contrast between the horrible nature of what's happening to the victims and the absolute flippancy of the dialogue with the cannibalistic family. Just the way that, they're talking about the cuts of meat right in front of the people who are, tied up and, taped mouths and screaming through it, as they're just talking about, well, that part right there could be awful tender, but that would make some good sweetmeats. So let's just go ahead and, pull out our recipe book. And they're just talking amongst themselves. It's like, ooh, brisket. Michael Brisket would make some good brisket. It's fun in its own right. I don't think outside of the world of horror movie lovers it would be that welcomed, but for us weird few, that has a sense of fun and whimsy about it. Unfortunately, that's really all it had to say for itself, and that really wasn't enough to fill an hour and 23-minute time slot of a feature-length motion picture, even a short one such as this. Now, this seems to have been made by kind of the small back alley crew of Hollywood. You have people that have worked their lives in major motion pictures, but kind of off to the side is kind of camera technicians, lighting technicians, and they seem to be, kind of gotten together and this small group of friends and decided to go ahead and make their own movie. And in that, you can see the love behind it and the care and just the absolute joy that they had in making this movie. And it shows, it shines through. I don't want to make this sound like it's a bad movie, because I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say it's really not. It's not for non-horror lovers. This is absolutely pretty much just for horror lovers. But amongst us, it's not a terrible movie. It's just more than anything else like your annoying nephew. It's just loud without a whole lot to say. And as far as having something of real substance to say, it started leaning towards possibly having some good subtext as far as the moral and ethical arguments about eating meat, as well as our dedication to our employers that just really couldn't give a lick about us in the first place. So the kind of the employee-employer, odd relationship that a lot of people seem to have. And even on those levels, that subtext was either on accident and it never really finished a thought, or it was on purpose and it never really stuck the landing. Either way, it really didn't get there. It never really managed to rise above just the superficial cannibalistic storyline that it presented on the screen. And the last bullet point thing I really kind of want to touch on as far as the content of this movie goes is the character choices. The character choices in this movie went from dubious to questionable to laughable, and then ultimately wound up giving myself a mild concussion with how often and how hard I was smacking my own forehead. It was painful to watch in that regard, as characters were saying, no, we can't do that, we have to do this. Towards the end of it, I was just, oh, jeez, what? It makes no sense. None whatsoever. And even them trying to make sense out of it by, justifying it with one line of dialogue, even that really didn't make a lot of sense. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm going to try and keep this spoiler free, but just damn. Some of the choices. I was almost screaming at my TV. I was definitely doing some internal screaming. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and throw up all the scores here. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot, I think, was kind of the lowest earner on this one. Just, again, what was written, what was presented, with the lack of real subtext, the lack of real interesting anything to say beyond just the cannibalistic storyline and the flippancy in which the characters were describing it, which again is not enough to fill out an hour and a half. It just never really managed to rise above that, as well as the character choices. Just what was written on the page just didn't seem to really launch its way off of it too much. So I really couldn't give it more than 10 out of 25 points there. It wasn't terrible, but it needed a bit more of a boost. It needed some rewrites. It needed something more to say. The Intent, I gave a 14, which wasn't bad. It's about average, because honestly, I did have fun watching this for a good portion of the time. I do think I should have had more fun, but I did have fun. And the technical and the acting both were pretty average. Nothing terrible, nothing really to write home about, but nothing really to, scream about, or, it wasn't bad. And that's the point of this one, is because I know personally, I've done this before. I did this in 2018, 25 horror movies about Christmas. I know how bad they can get, and they can get real freaking bad. And this ain't it. This is not a bad movie. But just like its main character of Michael Brisket, it's also just not very compelling either. So I think it's a jovial, fun romp that if you like the idea of having a Christmas horror movie that is a little bit vapid, has some fun cannibalistic moments, and some characters and the people behind the cameras that genuinely had some love and some care and wanted to have a fun time with their friends making a movie, if that sounds like it's something that appeals to you, then by all means, I think that 2017's Mercy Christmas is a good watch. If you want a scary, gritty, gory, terrifying horror movie that happens to be set around Christmas, this is probably one to skip over. But fun, yes, I'm going to go ahead and say that it absolutely was in its own right. So I think there it is. That's about as much as I can really nail down whether or not I would recommend this movie. It's not a pure black and white kind of thing. It's just kind of depends on what you're in the mood for, depends on who you are. Your mileage may vary. Take this review as an entire big old grain of salt, and let me know what you think if you do wind up watching it. I would love to hear your comments below. So that should about do it. That's my review of 2017's Mercy Christmas. I really thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe, and if you want to support me further, my Patreon and my merchandise storefront links are below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.